Hi there, I'm Joey from EDHREC, and I'm excited to share with you EDHREC's preview cards for the upcoming Commander Master set. Thank you very much, Wizards of the Coast, for the previews. Now, I'm no stranger to the internet during a Commander preview season. I know a lot of folks have already skipped right through the video because they want to see those card images. That's what they're here for. Get right to the good stuff, and I mean, there's no shame in that. I've totally done exactly the same thing. But I can't help myself. I've got that urge to do a content, and as long as I'm here showing you 2 reprints coming up in Commander Masters, I want to give you something that you can sink your teeth into. And as it happens, I think there's actually a pretty interesting lesson that both of these cards can teach us. So here they are, Wretched Confluence and Wake the Dead, a pair of W's. One first debuted in Commander 2015, providing a versatile range of abilities, and the other first appeared in Commander 2014, bringing back your dead for just one moment of defense before shipping them off once again. And they're getting new etched foil treatments, by the way, which, no lie, do indeed look quite snazzy. Now, if I had to guess, the reaction that many players will have to seeing these reprinted rares is probably something to the tune of, oh, huh. After all, even putting aside the price of these reprints, both of these cards only show up in approximately 5,000-ish decks, which maths out to an effective 0% inclusion rate amongst the 1,400,000 decks out there that are eligible to play them. Popular cards, these are not. But that's actually why I wanted to linger on them for a moment, because I think they're actually extremely misleading cards, and I think one of these card stats probably needs to be challenged. I'll admit, Wretched Confluence is a charming card, but it's never been a wonder for me. The versatility it offers is overshadowed by that hefty mana cost, but more importantly, this is one of those cards that taught me a lesson about just how much black decks care about having their effects on bodies rather than on spells. This card can draw, remove, or return, but for all 3 of those effects, I'd rather have them on a creature card, because that can help facilitate more death triggers, or give me more things to sacrifice later for big benefits. From necromancy to aristocrat strategies, non-creature slots are valuable. And in those contexts, this spell hasn't really cut the mustard for me, and I don't imagine that this reprinting will reignite much excitement for it either. To get the most benefit out of it, you really have to care about spells in your deck, which is why this card shows up most in decks like Toshiro, which can bring back instants. This card looks flexible and versatile, but by being a spell, it's actually quite niche. But the other one, Wake the Dead, honestly, I'm hoping that this reprinting helps put this card onto more players' radars, because this card has genuinely gone up and up in my evaluations over the years. The first time I saw it in 2014, I dismissed it. But the last time I actually cast this spell here in 2023, it won me the game. Longtime viewers will know my love of Sir Conrad the Grim, who observes all those creatures leaving the graveyard and deals damage for it, and then sees a bunch of creatures die in combat, dealing damage for that too. And then at the end of combat, these things get sacrificed, and he'll deal even more damage. Plus, even if you only get back like 3 creatures with it, I mean, do you know what happens when you slam Ayara, Grey Merchant, and Abhorrent Overlord onto the battlefield just for a brief moment? A lot of amazing stuff. Wake the Dead may only be castable during an opponent's combat, but that's not nearly as restrictive as it sounds. They don't even have to attack you at all. You can still just cast it when they try to move through their turn and be like, hold up, before your second main, I have to revive my Massacre Worm, Grimhar Specs, Drivnod, and my Kokosho real quick, and just completely futz with the board and lower a bunch of life totals and also draw a bunch of cards later when they die. That's the secret weapon of this card. It's both a reanimation spell and a sacrifice outlet, so it enables those death triggers that Aristocrats players love so much. This card turns out to be the truly flexible one, even though it doesn't look that way at all. It reads as a combat trick, but it's not. It's a one-sided temporary living death. You don't get to keep the creatures, but as those of us who love living death know, keeping the creatures is rarely the point of that card. If you know how to fill your graveyard and get back the right stuff, the enters the battlefield triggers and death triggers will be enough to KO an opponent all on their own. Non-creature spells are premium slots in Aristocrats and Graveyard decks, and these 2 reprints remind us of that lesson. And they also remind us that sometimes cards that look versatile are secretly very restrictive, and sometimes cards that look too restrained are actually hiding a bunch of potential hidden power. Wretched Confluence reads as super flexible, offering tons of possible options, but it turns out to be niche, and in many black decks, having a creature card in that slot might give you better results with the other branching aristocratic synergies in your deck. Meanwhile, Wake the Dead reads as super restrictive, only castable at a fixed point in time, not letting you keep the creatures, but it turns out to be the truly versatile one, because it could be used to help stymie a deadly combat step, and it could also just be used to actually KO your opponent by getting back a couple of bodies and facilitating tons of triggers when things enter and when they leave. And it all comes out of nowhere. This one, to me, is worth the slot as a non-creature spell because it lets the creature synergies shine, and it facilitates the exact situation that graveyard decks love in the first place. Thank you again to Wizards of the Coast for the previews. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts about any other potentially misleading cards down in the comments below. And as always, remember, EDH wreck your deck before you wreck your deck.